Hello everyone, my name is Annual, and today, I apologize for the late video. I've been a little bit busy, as well as I've been trying to give this Fern character as big of a very good review as I can do, but she is at a mid-tier character at best. So a little bit of disclaimer here, although Fern is a little bit of a mid-tier character, I don't recommend skipping because there's no guarantee that these collab characters can ever come back, and there's ever a situation where this character actually becomes very good, and you don't have the character, well, you can just say goodbye to your chances because you don't have the character, and since they're limited, well, you can't get them. And the same thing applies for other limited characters in this game. It's especially important for this one because they're a collab character, and instead of them potentially coming back a year later, they can just permanently be gone forever. So I still recommend picking up a copy of Fern, but if I were to say which ones are the strongest characters in this collab, it's definitely Free Ren by a landslide. But with that being said, let's get started with our regular video format. So we'll talk about how to build the character Fern. So first and foremost, let's talk about recommended sets. I have tested everything I could have for this character, and the best sets is, without a doubt, going to be Riposte set. A close second will be Speed set. And as for your 2P sets, we're going to be going for crit chance if you choose to be on a speed set, because trying to stretch out some stats for Fern is a little bit hard. So crit set is okay, and if you've played this character, you know that this character does well enough damage, so pen set is not a requirement. But if you're playing more on the lower speed thresholds, you might as well just use pen set. Pen set is of course going to be your probably your highest recommendation, because why not? Immunity set you can never go wrong with, but it's a little bit more lower value on Fern because due to her speed stat, it activates after whichever person goes first, right? So for instance, CO or Conqueror Lilius, they'll go first, and then Fern's passive activates. And if there's no disruptions in the CR bar or something, Fern is probably going to take the second or third turn due to how fast she is. So she's realistically only protected against a handful of situations. So for that reason, the media set is a little bit less value, but once again, you can't go wrong with it. So there's about 3 builds I will cover for you guys. There's 2 different Riposte set builds and the speed set build, and afterwards I'll go over probably the main issues with the builds, which is the reason why it's kind of hard to give a really good stat line. So let's go for the generic Riposte set build. You're going to be aiming for 3.5k attack. Defense, try to get a little bit near the 1k range. For HP, anything above 10k HP will be pretty good. As for your speed stats, or I think speed goes next, right? Yeah, as for your speed stat, you're going to be sitting around 200 speed to 230 speed, and you want to be as close as possible to this higher threshold. Once again, Fern does not need to have a super high amount of damage, but the higher you are able to build your speed on this Fern, the better it's going to feel. And we'll talk a little bit more about that a bit afterwards. Your crit chance, of course, you want to play 100%, but if you are just at the cusp at 100, sitting at 99, this is perfectly fine. A lot of people play it this way. And as for your crit damage, 250 and above is perfectly fine. I'm sitting around 290, so if you want to go a lot higher in your damage, you can. But if you're going to be playing around the 230 speed range, you're probably going to need to lower some stat, and lowering the crit damage is fine. So let's talk about the other build here. The other build is going to be 4k attack plus, and you're going to be lowering your crit damage to maybe around 200, I would say 220, and speed stat remains the same. You do want to keep this as high as possible, and pretty much everything else is relatively the same. The thinking with this build compared to the other one is that you're running very high attacks, so you can play artifacts like Chatty, or her own artifacts, so you can play off of having a really thick barrier. And having a really thick barrier means that you can survive longer. And next up, we'll talk about speed set. Speed set, you want to be playing around 250 speed, and you're basically going to put your stats into any damage stats you can, because when you're at these faster speeds, you can't afford to build bulk. So once again, your attack is going to remain the same, and your crit stats are going to roughly remain the same, but instead you're going to be running around 250 speed or faster. Okay, let's talk about the speed stat, and the biggest reason between the two sets, or the biggest problem I've ran into. So while I was testing, I felt like Riposte set, no matter what, kind of felt like the best set, because it synergizes perfectly with her passive. When she gets hit, or like when she gets attacked and you hit it and it's a miss, she counterattacks, gives back that focus, as well as lowers the cooldown for her S1, right? Or I think that's pretty different if I remember correctly. But, so you lose and you miss, you counter, you get back a focus stack, and it just means it's a way to maintain your focus stacks. And the only thing is that for some reason sometimes it feels like she's not cycling fast enough, and it's only because if you're facing characters like Seska or there's some multi-hitter, you're going to lose more focus than you gain. And having the faster speeds means you can piggyback off of your base speed and basically have a cycle a lot more quicker. That was the benefit of having a speed set. Playing on speed set, I tested actually 270 speed, but looking at the actual like speed average, I couldn't recommend it to anyone. But I can assure you, I played this character at 270 speed, and it felt really good. But then I ran into the problem of if I'm getting hit, I'm not getting back my focus. So that basically is where the speed set is coming from when we're building these two sets. It's basically the best of both worlds, where if you're 230 speed, you're pretty fast, but you're still on Riposte set, so you're getting the best of both worlds. The biggest issue is that I don't think anybody can realistically even gear this. I've looked at various builds that I've played around 230 speed or faster on Riposte set, and it almost definitely requires at least 120 speeder or 18 speed average. So it's just not plausible for the general player base to even build this build. So that's pretty much where we're at in terms of builds, and that's pretty much just the thinking behind it. So maybe none of us can actually gear a pretty good Fern, but what can you do? So let's just talk about where she is good at. In terms of RTA, she is a 4 or 5 pick, and the amount of games she can be included into is probably a handful. Her win rate is pretty much still at a whopping 43%, so if you ask me how the heck to use Fern in RTA, do not ask me, because I tried and it's pretty dang hard. In terms of things like Guild Wars, she is pretty okay in it. She has the ability, since she's pretty much really high damage, she can break through things like Boss Arunca, but the biggest problem is she's very much backloaded. So you either somehow have a very good stall comp, or you take a ROM with you, which means you're down 1 unit, you're playing 2 units specifically for Fern, or you're playing 1 unit specifically for Fern. And if the things go south, you have to hope Fern souls it for you. But it's kind of hard to get her into Guild War, because there's just a lot of Lady of the Skills, and I felt like that was kind of the biggest thing that made her feel a little bit bad in terms of Arena and Guild War, is that you're going to see Lady of the Skills everywhere, and this character is definitely not the best pick into it. And that kind of brings us to Arena, where she didn't feel the greatest because of Lady of the Skills being everywhere, but she's definitely usable. Like, don't get me wrong, guys, out of everything I'm saying, yeah, it sounds like I'm trashing on the character, but she's definitely usable. She's just not as usable as Freerin. I can probably take Freerin everywhere. I can't take Fern everywhere though. So that's pretty much where we're at, and I pretty much don't know what else to really say about Fern. I tried to give her the best chance I could, and relatively she just felt mediocre in most cases. That being said, her damage is very much insane. If you can get her to work, she'll work fantastically, but it's just just getting her into those situations is pretty hard. In terms of like PvE content, I don't think she's bad for that. She's definitely usable, but in terms of PvP, where you're going to use her the most, she's not that much usable. So I apologize if this video is not exactly what you wanted to hear, but it was pretty hard to even relatively just, it was pretty hard to, find things that work with her. But as per usual, we will actually just go to the tier list that will tell you how the heck to use this character. So the best pairs I found was definitely Boss Arunca, which protects Fern from losing her stacks. These characters here help her cycle faster, so these are very good. This resets her S3, this cycles faster, this is a dual attacker which makes her shoot and lower her cooldown, and this is also a dual attacker. And I added a bunch of dual attacks here because these characters are dual attackers, and these are okay, decent pairs. This helps her do more damage. This increases her evasion, so you don't have to worry about losing focus. Same thing with Ascat. And then you have to beware, and notice how it says beware of everything, because a lot of things are kind of screw over. Ross presses S2 into her and blows up. LHC, you feed LHC for fun. Mort prevents her from countering, means she can get focused. Raynok S2's S3s and kills her. Setsuko is the biggest contender of every time you miss, you lose 2 focus for fun. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And then we have Royal Maid here, because that's where kind of meta is. And you could shoot something dead. But if they just get revived, what's the point? I usually stay a bit longer on these tier lists, but once again, this character is just pretty much mid-tier, and I can't really talk about a mid-tier character. There's not that much to explore for the character, you know? But for certain, if you want to use her, Boss Arunka feels like her best pair because it prevents her from you know, getting targeted, and then you have dual attackers that makes her feel good. I think like the one thing is, like, if you're wondering if you can play her into Ilnov, you can brute force her into Ilnov. She actually has so much damage that she actually kills through Ilnov a lot of the time. So that's actually pretty cool, right? But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I can talk about for this character. I once again do apologize. I don't have a lot to say about her, but that's really how it is. This character is definitely mid tier. She's certainly usable. Don't get me wrong, but if I were to compare her to Freyren, I don't think I would put her very high. Anyways, I will see you guys in the next video.